Nashville Christmas Day bombing. On December 25, 2020, a recreational vehicle exploded in downtown Nashville, Tennessee. The bomber, Anthony Quinn Warner, had parked the vehicle and broadcast warnings before the blast. The explosion damaged buildings and injured several people.
Where's your car? Okay, go to your car. What's going on?
Though no one else was killed. Warner died in the explosion. Investigators found that he had acted alone and held various conspiracy-driven beliefs. Boston Marathon bombing. On April 15, 2013, a vehicle bombs exploded before being linked to the Boston Marathon. The attackers were brothers Tamerlan Tsarnaev and Dzhokhar Tsarnaev. They had built pressure cooker bombs packed with explosives, nails, and metal fragments, then placed the devices in backpacks and left them among spectators gathered near the race's finish line. When the bombs detonated seconds apart, 3 people were killed and more than 200 were injured. After the bombing, the brothers left the scene and blended into the crowd. That same night, the brothers killed a police officer from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology during an attempt to steal his service weapon. They then hijacked a car and forced the driver to withdraw money from an ATM. The driver managed to escape and alert authorities. Police soon located the stolen vehicle, leading to a violent confrontation in the suburb of Watertown. During the gunfight with police, the brothers threw improvised explosives and exchanged gunfire with officers. Tamerlan Tsarnaev was shot and seriously wounded during the confrontation. As police closed in, Dzhokhar attempted to escape by driving the stolen vehicle away from the scene. While fleeing, he drove the car over his wounded brother. Tamerlan was taken to a hospital but died shortly. Tsarnaev managed to escape the immediate scene, triggering an intense manhunt across the Boston metropolitan area. Late on April 19th, a Watertown resident noticed blood on a boat stored in his backyard. When he looked closer, he saw a person hiding inside and called the police. Officers surrounded the boat and used thermal imaging to confirm that Dzhokhar Tsarnaev was inside. After a brief standoff, he was taken into custody. He had been seriously injured, including a gunshot wound to the throat. In 2015, a federal jury found him guilty on all charges and sentenced him to death. Because of ongoing legal appeals, the sentence has not yet been carried out. As of today, Dzhokhar Tsarnaev is still alive and remains imprisoned in a high-security federal prison in the United States. Austin IRS building attack. On February 18, 2010, a 53-year-old software engineer named Joseph Andrew Stack carried out a suicide attack by flying a small, single-engine plane into an office building in Austin, Texas. The building housed nearly 200 employees, including offices of the Internal Revenue Service. Before the attack, Stack had set fire to his own home after an argument with his family, who had left the house the night before. Investigators found that he fueled his plane before takeoff, likely to increase the impact of the crash. At around 9:40 a.m., he took off, and within minutes, deliberately flew the aircraft at full speed into the lower floors of the building. The crash caused a large explosion, trapping people inside and forcing others to escape through smoke and debris. Stack had a long history of anger toward the IRS and government tax policies. Before the attack, he posted a manifesto online in which he wrote, "I am finally ready to stop this insanity. Well, Mr. Big Brother IRS man, let's try something different. Take my pound of flesh and sleep well." The message reflected years of frustration and his decision to turn that anger into violence. The attack killed Stack and one federal employee, while several others were injured. Oklahoma City bombing. On April 19, 1995, a rental truck filled with homemade explosives detonated outside the Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building in Oklahoma City. The attack was carried out by Timothy McVeigh, a Gulf War veteran, with the help of Terry Nichols. At the time, it was the deadliest act of terrorism on American soil. The explosion destroyed a large portion of the building, killing 168 people, including 19 children, and injuring more than 800 people. The blast caused widespread destruction across a 16-block radius, damaging hundreds of nearby buildings and leaving the city in shock. McVeigh and Nichols had met years earlier during military training and bonded over growing anti-government beliefs. McVeigh had been deeply influenced by extremist ideas, including a novel that described a violent uprising against the federal government using a truck bomb. On the morning of April 19, 1995, McVeigh parked the truck directly outside the building and detonated it at 9:02 a.m. The explosion tore through the structure, trapping many inside. Emergency responders and volunteers rushed to the scene, beginning one of the largest rescue and recovery efforts in U.S. history. McVeigh was arrested shortly after the bombing during a traffic stop, initially for a vehicle violation, before being linked to the attack. Nichols was arrested soon after. In 1997, McVeigh was found guilty on multiple counts and sentenced to death. He was executed by lethal injection on June 11, 2001, while Nichols was sentenced to life in prison and later received multiple additional life sentences. The 9/11 attack. On September 11, 2001, 19 members of the extremist group Al-Qaeda carried out coordinated suicide hijackings across the United States. Early that morning, the attackers boarded 4 commercial airplanes departing from airports on the East Coast. Shortly after takeoff, they took control of the aircraft using small weapons and threats, overpowering both crew and passengers. The first plane, American Airlines Flight 11, was flown into the North Tower of the World Trade Center in New York City at 8:46 a.m., and just 17 minutes later, another United Airlines Flight 175 struck the South Tower. The impacts caused massive fires and structural damage, trapping thousands of people inside. As smoke filled the buildings, many attempted to escape and jumped from the building due to severe heat. At 9:37 a.m., a third plane, American Airlines Flight 77, crashed into the Pentagon in Arlington, Virginia, damaging a large section of the building and causing further casualties. Meanwhile, the fourth plane, United Airlines Flight 93, was headed toward a target in Washington, D.C. Passengers on board, having learned about the earlier attacks through phone calls, attempted to retake control of the aircraft. During the struggle, the plane crashed into a field in Pennsylvania at 10:03 a.m., preventing it from reaching its intended target. Back in New York, the situation continued to worsen. At 9:59 a.m., the South Tower collapsed completely. The destruction of the tower sent massive clouds of dust and debris through the surrounding area, covering streets and buildings and creating chaos across the city. Rescue efforts began immediately, with firefighters, police officers, and emergency personnel working to search for survivors in the rubble. More than 3,000 people were killed in the attack, and nearly 8,000 were injured. The scale and coordination of the attacks made it one of the most devastating days in American history.